how do you help entrepreneurs navigate actual life when it comes to state?
My personal preference
I'll take it.
is to never hire a productivity coach that doesn't have any kids. Because you don't know the challenge of a 2.5-year-old who wakes up every night for the last 6 months at 2:30 in the morning and knocking on your door crying. Those are things that you can't control. You and your wife or you and your partner have to be in complete alignment. Me and my wife, we have a very egalitarian relationship. So we are equals in the relationship. She can make decisions, I can make decisions, and we come together to make decisions for each other. One thing we have is the ability to kind of veto each other's decisions. Our relationship matters way more than anything else in business, matters more than me speaking on a stage.
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go. Art, welcome to the microphone, Shawn Quintero. Shawn Quintero is a serial entrepreneur, master coach, and mentor, and serves on boards and in executive leadership positions across multiple businesses. He is a leading expert in the field of AI, business operations, coaching, and digital launch strategy. With a wealth of experience and thousands of case studies, Shawn is dedicated to helping you activate abundance in your life and in your business. Let's start talking.
You guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am so thrilled to introduce a friend of mine, the amazing Shawn Quintero, here to the podcast. Shawn, I'm so glad that you're here.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
You guys, we are friends because we both love Star Wars. Like, let's just get that out there. Is that true, Shawn?
1,000,000%. My very first Star Wars movie was episode 4, and I fell in love. And it's because my neighbors were like, "You've never seen Star Wars?" And I was like 7 or 8 years old. And they're like, "We got to change your life." And they 100% changed my life. Back then it was VHS tapes. So we like stuck it in, watched the VHS tape version of 4, 5, and 6. And then the prequels came out, and I was like a 9-year-old. So the prequels have a special place in my heart. Even if you're a Star Wars fan and you hate them, that's okay. I love them. And yeah, I've been a fan ever since.
Oh, I love it so much. And in fact, when we first got on camera, we were talking about your crocheted Grogu in the back. And I mean, it's just a big part of my growing up, and it's a part of my kids' lives. And I actually really love the tangible vision I'm seeing of you popping in a VHS to watch it for the first time. Like, those were the good old days, Shawn. Those were the good old days.
The good old days.
Well, and what's marvelous is, and you may judge me for this, I've got a Wicked poster that's in my office right now.
I love it.
There are so many iconic themes in Star Wars that I constantly go back to the hero's journey and who is the guide and who is the hero, and like, oh my gosh, the millions of questions Luke asks in order to, become who he becomes. There's so many incredible themes. But what I didn't expect to meet a friend like you that now has like a Star Wars fitness channel that has kind of exploded. And so I want to dive into that. And that will probably be one of the first things that we dive into. But for people who are new to you and are seeing, oh my gosh, you're like on all these executive leadership boards with multiple businesses. You're like AI, business operations, coaching, digital launch strategy, like so many things. How did you get started in entrepreneurship? Like, give me the 5-minute version of like, how did you get here? Why are you doing this? And we'll dive in from there.
I had a job that I hated, a boss that I hated, and a routine that I hated. And then I looked at my bank account and I was like, I think that could be a little bit better because I could barely put gas money in my car. And I don't know about you, but I had these pictures of wealth of when I knew I would have made it. And I knew I would be like there. I made it, when I was able to put a full tank of gas in my car without having to check my bank account. Like that was, oh, I made it. I can do this. I've like succeeded in life. That's kind of how poor we were growing up. That's like, I was barely making minimum wage. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna go figure out how people become wealthy. I did a ton of research. Back then, it was not like a ChatGPT prompt. It was, I had to go through and like actually do the research. So I did the research, spent like 3 months just reading every book, watching every webinar, signing up for everything, and discovered the number one way people in America have built wealth was through entrepreneurship, being business owners. And so I said, okay, that's how I'm going to do it. It's not just, I'm not going to try to get another high paying job. I'm going to go build a business where my income capacity and my revenue capacity isn't limited. So I started my very first business, which was a total flop. My first 4 businesses were total flops. And it was an events-driven business. I felt like I was going to be the next Tony Robbins, where I was going to be speaking in front of audiences. And so I started doing what I called Night of Inspirations in my parents' backyard. And it would be invite everybody for free, come on in. And I would just do this kind of inspirational talk to everybody. We would have like artists and musicians and dancers kind of do things throughout the night to kind of create inspiration and creativity. And then I'd end the night with this big like speech. And I quickly realized this is fun, but I have no way to monetize this. I didn't know how to sell tickets. I was like, we had like a little box with like a donations handwritten on it, and we never talked about it. So we barely made any money from it. So I said, okay, I got to figure this out. I went on Google and I searched up like business conferences, and I found one that felt perfect for me. It was like all about startups, and that's where I was. And I need to be in the room because I knew that the people who were in that room knew more than I did. And if I could just be around them, I would catch something. I would hear something. I would learn something that would like excel my process. And it's a lesson I learned very quickly is I'm not going to figure out how to do this unless I know who I can rely on, who I can ask questions to. I needed that mentor. So I went to go buy a ticket, and tickets were like $8,000 for like basic tickets. And I was like, okay, there's no way I can do this. I didn't even have 8,000 in credit. Like it was like crazy expensive. And so I said, okay, you know what? I don't have the resources to make this happen, but that doesn't mean I can't be resourceful. So I scoured their website on like a random terms of service page. I found an email, and I emailed them, and I said, I will scrub toilets. I will put the chairs out. I will help as a greeter. I will do registration. Whatever it takes for me to be in the room, I will 100% do. They said, great, come on in. So I volunteered. And that volunteer was I was hoping to be like a back of the room monitor so I could still be in the sessions and like listen and secretly take notes. But they had me at registration. I was like, okay, I'll do registration. At least I'll meet people. And what happened was a day or two into the conference, it was like a full week conference. They called me and they said, hey, Shawn, you have a media background. That was my full-time job at the time, was as a media director. And our director, or our media director is throwing up in his room. He can't do the conference. And you're the only person who is on our volunteer team that we are thinking we can pull in. And I was like, yes, let's do it. I've done this, for the last 8 years. And so I went from being on the registration table to being backstage and meeting these incredible speakers, being able to not just hear the sessions, but make connections. And that was when I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I fly back, and about a week later, the CEO of the entire conference, there were like 5,000 people at this conference. The CEO calls me and says, that was amazing. We're so appreciative. We want you back. We're going to pay you $10,000, put you up in a hotel, fly you out. And I was like, $10,000. That's like, I won the lottery. That's amazing.
No, I can fill my gas tank. Yes.
100%. And so I discovered, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. And my second business was doing like a lot of events driven conferences, and got the chance to work with people and meet people like Gary Vee, Damon John, like Michael Hyatt, just a ton of really incredible people.
James.
And that was when I started to discover what my next business, which was the first success, was a marketing agency. Like, oh, okay, I can do this. And that was like my entrance into entrepreneurship, was volunteering at a conference I couldn't afford and simply being in the right rooms with the right people with the right skill set and being willing to do something rather than kind of look at a price point and say, I can't do that. I guess I'll figure it out myself.
I'm blown away by your story, first off. How did that experience of I'm going to scrub toilets or I'm going to sit at the registration table in order to pay my way to being backstage, how has that painted who you are now as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I can still feel the anxiety.
Yeah.
When I remember looking at that price point and thinking, man, I'm on the outside of those who can attend. And then I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was like just an ambition or a desire to make it work. And I've said that quite a bit, is I'm going to make this work. I'm going to figure this out. But I remember the determination I had to say, you know what? No, I'm going to figure out how to get into the room no matter what. And I think that has really contributed to a lot of my work ethic today, is when we come up to challenges, because guess what? Challenges don't go away. Problems don't go away. If you're an entrepreneur, you solve problems. So literally problems are your livelihood. When I find a problem, it's okay. We don't have billions of dollars yet. We don't have budgets that are limitless. We have a specific amount of resources, a specific amount of staff, a specific amount of tools that we can use. Let's make it happen with what we have. And even if we may not have the resources, let's figure out a way to be resourceful in this specific challenge or problem.
And that's a word that, I don't know you super well, right? I am like entranced by your Star Wars Fitness channel, right? But that is something that I have witnessed from you, this word resourcefulness, right? Whether you've said that out loud or whether I've just seen it in your business. And so many entrepreneurs, as we are continually pulled upward to do more and accomplish more and impact more and make more and hire more, and there's always that drive within an entrepreneur. What are errors that you see entrepreneurs make when it comes to resourcefulness?
Yeah, I think it's always a who, not how. I think Russell Brunson kind of made that famous. I discovered that really early on, is instead of figuring out and spending all of this energy and time and effort on figuring out how to do something, let me identify someone who has already done it, who can accelerate my process to doing it myself, and who's available to me. So sometimes that's me hiring a coach or a mentor, an advisor, a consultant. Other times that's just, hey, let me read their book. Let me listen to their YouTube channels and podcasts. Let me ask ChatGPT now or whatever AI platform that we're using to uncover, what the system or process is. And I think that's number one. Number two, it's another problem that I see a lot of people make when it comes to resourcefulness is thinking not in terms of systems and instead thinking in terms of effort. So a lot of hustle, grind, make it work is great at the beginning of your business. As you begin to scale it, hustle and grind and effort isn't as scalable as you'd like because you're going to burn out. For me, I don't want to hustle 24/7. I want to spend time with my family. I want to be with my daughter. I want to go have fun. I want to watch Star Wars. I want to be lazy on Saturdays. Like I don't want to hustle and grind. And so hustle and grind will get you to a certain point. And the transition that needs to take place is from effort to systems, because systems can be scalable. A system is something where you are able to automate, delegate, batch, outsource something off your plate onto somebody else's plate, so you're free to do something else. And I see that a lot is, one of the things I've been mentoring a lot of coaches around today is how do you move from being the primary coach in your coaching business to being the actual CEO, where you're not responsible for generating leads, converting sales, delivering coaching services. You have other people doing those things. So you have like a real business. So that's like one of the big issues is, okay, I have these resources. How can I build a system around it instead of how do I put more energy, effort, time, money into it?
I love both of those points. And when you start with that initial point of who, not how, I think our minds immediately go to who do I need to hire or who do I need to, spend money on to solve X problem. And when I go back to your story that you shared at the beginning, sometimes it's just simply who do I know that can help make this happen for me. Like, I am imagining you scrolling through the terms of service and finding this random email. That is a who.
Yeah.
That is a who that opened the door. I immediately, though, also imagine all of the doubts that creep in. Oh, they're going to think I'm an idiot. Oh my gosh, they're going to like laugh about this at the office of this guy that's trying to like get an $8,000 ticket for free, and that kind of mindset stuff that comes in. So, what do you witness with the entrepreneurs that you work through of how mindset gets in their way of taking risks like that, like looking like an idiot to the person that you're about to email?
Yeah. So when it comes to mindset, I have a very different approach than most, because most people will try to think their way into different behaviors, but you don't think yourself into new habits. You behave yourself into new ways of thinking. In other words, your behavior will oftentimes determine what you think about what's happening. So most of the time when I'm coaching an entrepreneur, I don't want to know what you're thinking about this. I just want you to go do it. Go do it. Then tell me what you were thinking about, during the process. And now let's uncover that. But what's going to happen is oftentimes people get into a position where it's analysis paralysis. They're overthinking it. They're like, oh, here's all of these mindset issues. Here's all of these challenges. And they're in the challenge way. They're in the challenge mindset. I don't care about what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Just go do the action first. And then let's uncover what were the things that happened that allowed you to either slow down. How can we, make it go faster? How can we accelerate the process to you doing that again? So patterns beat mindset all day, every day. If you have a pattern that you do, it doesn't matter what your mindset is, because you're going to do that pattern. You're going to do that behavior. Your mindset is simply going to make it easier to do, faster to do, et cetera. So I want to get people into action. And then once they're in action, we can cover their mindset.
Apologies about my camera. I don't know what happened, but here we are. We're flying. We're going. Well, I'm just going to keep the other camera on. I love this concept of flipping it from just start behaving a certain way, right? Instead of trying to spend the mindset piece in there. Why is there so much emphasis then on meditation and on stillness and on journaling and on, like, how do you come to terms with the effectiveness or lack of effectiveness of what we're taught in the entrepreneurship world about mindset?
Yeah, a lot of that work is powerful, right? Meditative states, Tony Robbins speaks a lot of, emotion is motion, just kind of felt internally. And he also talks about, mind states. Is if you can put yourself into a mind state, or a kind of a state of mind where you believe and you identify with success, then you're naturally going to take that action. The action kind of follows. What I find a lot of beginning stages of entrepreneurs experience is that over-analysis, that over-training, that over-certifying. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with someone and they're like, I have gone through 7 to 10 different trainings and I'm so educated. And I'm like, okay, great. You got that down. Let's actually implement it. Let's get you into action. What happens is, their state of mind. So we do an exercise actually with entrepreneurs where we have them stand up and we ask them to visualize what it would look like if they were successful, if they had done the activity and it was smooth and easy, if they had all the confidence in the world. We have them stand up, close their eyes, and visualize it. And then we ask them, okay, double the amount of confidence, double the amount of smooth and ease, double the amount of positivity and optimism. Close your eyes. Imagine what you would look like. What does your body do? How do you sound? What does your facial expressions look like? How do you feel in your chest? Where are your legs? How are you standing? Now double it again. And we put them in the state of mind where they feel that real confidence. And that feeling, kind of that state of mind, translates into better action rather than thinking, kind of making it very cerebral. So we tend to go into kind of that emotion first before going into the motion, rather than what are you thinking? What are the beliefs? Like all of that is just a lot of over analyzing. We can cover that afterwards, but let's just get you into action.
Wow. And this, okay, I'm going to push you on this a little bit. Yeah. I remember the very first time I read the book Atomic Habits. And I thought, this makes so much sense, right?
Yeah.
And I was like,
A great
okay,
book.
now I actually need to implement it. So I'm going to read it again. So I read it again, and all I could think about was, I would love to know what his wife is doing while he is doing all this habit stacking and this atomic habits. And I know you're married, and I know you've got one kid.
One, yeah.
One. Okay. I'm just making sure I'm getting my details right, but you've got one child now. And I think this is what's tricky is I believe in state, right? I believe in that. I've sat with Tony Robbins, like, yes, 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 yes. I believe in atomic habits, right? I believe in habit stacking. I believe in setting my gym clothes out night before and like committing to that process and keeping my word. I love all of that. And that works so effectively if we are a lone human.
Yeah.
There is not a child that wakes up in the middle of the night, or there is not, a spouse that is having a down day, or there is not XYZ. So how do you help entrepreneurs navigate actual life when it comes to state?
So a couple of things to note. My personal preference, now this isn't for everyone, my personal preference
I'll take it.
is to never hire a productivity coach that doesn't have any kids. Because you don't know the challenge of a 2.5-year-old who wakes up every night for the last 6 months at 2:30 in the morning and knocking on your door crying. Those are things that you can't control. So a couple of things that I personally recommend is you and your wife or you and your partner have to be in complete alignment. You have to know, what is the vision for your family? What is the mission statement of your family? Why are you a unit? And what are you together here to do? If you don't have those brand, kind of talking about a company, like it oftentimes translates to brand values, vision statement, mission statement. But translate that to your family unit. What are our values? When we're making decisions, what are we going to rely on? Is it just what we feel in the moment? Or is it going to be, hey, this is our value and this is the decision we're making together? Me and my wife, we have a very egalitarian relationship. So we are equals in the relationship. She can make decisions, I can make decisions, and we come together to make decisions for each other. One thing we have is the ability to kind of veto each other's decision. So it's like, hey, you're doing this thing, it's going to harm me in this way. I'm calling a veto on it, because our relationship matters way more than anything else in business. Matters more than me speaking on a stage. It matters more than me making millions of dollars. My relationship comes first. Here's why. For me and my wife, we grew up with very difficult and challenging examples of marriage. My parents got divorced early on. Her parents had challenges as well. And so I made an early decision. I want to be the very best husband and the very best father, because I didn't see a good husband and I didn't have a good father. And so if I just do those two things at the end of my life, I will be 100% completely satisfied. And same thing with my wife. So we know, okay, we're aligned that we're making decisions for each other, not just for ourselves. Second thing I would say is, once you and your wife or your partner are aligned and you've kind of understood, like, we're going through life with this direction, then that begins to translate. Okay, how are we going to be a parent? What is our role as Nyla is my daughter's name, as Nyla's parent? What kind of parent does she need? Because here's the truth. Parenting has so many different styles. One parenting style for one child does not work for the next child. So really, how much effort, how much time, how much money are we going to invest in understanding how to be the very best parents possible to raise an amazing adult who not only contributes to society, but feels a fulfilled and meaningful kind of life? Once you get really clear about those things, and the way that we do it is we do annual and quarterly kind of family sessions of, okay, we're going to take a whole weekend away. We have a whole list of like 101 questions that we ask each other every single year. And then quarterly, we review it every single quarter. Are we on the right track financially, spiritually, relationally, intimately, etc.? And with that clarity comes a lot of understanding kind of the patterns and behaviors that are going to align with, those goals and those visions. So
Yes.
how do you make sure you're creating a lot of great momentum? You got to know exactly what you want together as a family. And then you got to make sure your patterns, your behaviors line up to make that happen.
It's such wrong word, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's such a mature approach to raising a family when you say you have to actually know what kind of family you want, right? Yep. I think often we step into our family of origin, or we are dictated what a family should look like through religion or through moral constructs or through societal expectations. And we kind of just move with it, right? Like, I want to be a good mom. Okay, great. If I just pause there, I would never know if I was a good mom because I actually haven't defined what being a good mom is. And I love how you've taken, again, you're like practicing what you preach, the behavior side of, okay, a husband and wife are on the same team if they have the power to veto. A husband and wife are it's a good marriage if we're asking 101 questions every single year and checking in quarterly. Because if you miss a quarterly check-in, you then know, oh, I've missed something here. I'm misaligned and I can get realigned. And I think so often we don't go any further than saying, I want a strong marriage. And it ends right there. And that can create turmoil and confusion and challenges that way. So where do you, I'm just going to dive straight into it. How has religion impacted your role as husband and wife in what you've constructed?
Yeah. So I want to speak to a little bit of, before we jump into that, you know, oftentimes what happens is like we've missed quarterlies before. And what happens is there becomes unspoken expectations. Like I said, we go through this list of 101 questions. I think it's probably more than that, but it allows us to get very clear. What is our expectation around, you know, how much time we spend together, just you and me? How often, you know, what is our expectation around how much time we spend as a family outside of the home, inside the home? How many, you know, what is our expectation about how many friends we invite over throughout the week? How many dinners we say yes to? How often I'm away from home or how often she is away from home? You know, it creates a lot of clarity so that there's not unspoken expectations. Arguments oftentimes happen because there were unspoken expectations. I thought we were supposed to do it this way. She thought we were supposed to do it that way. We weren't very clear. And now I'm frustrated. She's frustrated. And that frustration is expressing itself in an argument. So if we can just really communicate what our expectations are and then align on what we're agreeing to, that almost settles almost all of the arguments that typically come up, the conflict. Now that's pending you've done like trauma work and there's not a lot of, you know, the deep inner work that oftentimes comes up in a marriage as well and kind of gets exposed when you are living with someone. But when you have a really strong relationship, the challenges are still going to come up. It's typically because of unexpected or unspoken expectations. What we tend to do, like one just practical tactical, is when we go to an event, I am a visual thinker. So I think in pictures, not words. I know it's kind of weird, but that's just how my brain works. Cool. I will literally close my eyes and tell my wife, okay, this is what I'm seeing. We're going to come in and we are going to be so aligned. We're already smiling and laughing. You know, we're going to find opportunities to just glance and look at each other and flirt with each other. I really want to connect with this person and I'm visually seeing, you know, I'm laughing, they're laughing, we're connecting. And I'll literally describe the vision I have for it. Then she thinks more in words. So she'll describe what she's seeing as what her expectations are. She might say, you know what, I actually see us leaving early because I want to get home and I want to, you know, cuddle with you at night or whatever the case is. You know, so we will share the kind of pre-conversation before something happens, gets us really aligned so we know what we're walking into together.
Why have I never heard of this kind of practice? Like I've heard of pre-visualization for like billionaires that walk into a keynote or pre-visualization for an event or whatever. But I'm like, oh, like shocking that it could also provide immense value within a relationship of setting expectations and helping that happen.
It works really well during the holidays. Okay, we're going to Thanksgiving at this family. We're going to see all of these family members. Here's what I'm saying. Oh, you're seeing that really weird interaction possibly happening. Okay, now I know I can be a blocker to that, or I can like be conscious of that. So it really works during the holidays.
I mean, I'm like chuckling about it. I'm like, yes, I now have something new to bring to the table in my own marriage. That's great. So I'm fascinated by the idea that both of you experienced what many would consider to be unsuccessful relationships in your family of origin. And what made you want to get married and build a family?
Yeah, I can only speak for myself. I grew up, my father was my biological father was incredibly abusive, physically, emotionally, like just very tormenting as well. I was very scared of him. I went through a process of, mentorship therapy, counseling, and got to a point where I forgave him. I spoke that to him. I let him know, hey, I release it. I know you are just as flawed and broken as every other person out there. I know that there are things you've experienced as a childhood that are expressing itself in this way. And I know that it wasn't your fault when you were a kid and these things happened to you, and things that I may not even be aware of, things you've never told anyone. And so I went through this process where I had a lot of grace and empathy and understood him for who he was, and was allowed to release a lot of the anger, bitterness, unforgiveness, kind of that process. I met my wife when we were 13 years old, and it was because I had previously, a couple of months earlier, written a suicide letter, and I wanted to end my life. I was incredibly depressed. I have scars on my wrist to prove how little value I gave my life. And I ended up, I wrote this letter. I gave it to a friend. The friend gave it to a teacher, gave it to a counselor, gave it to my mom. My mom gave it to a pastor at a church, the church that we were attending. And the pastor said, you know what? I'm going to surround you with people who love you, in the youth group at the time. Because I had no friends. I couldn't connect with people. And so he said, I'm going to connect you with people who love you. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to have you volunteer. It was a great way for him to get a volunteer and a great way for me to meet people. So he made me a door greeter. So I was a door greeter for this church in specifically the youth section of the church. The very first day I greeted, someone introduced me to my wife. And in my 12, 13-year-old brain said, oh, she loves me. Because that's what the pastor said. He's going to surround me with people who love me. She loves me. And I knew at that point, I'm going to marry her. I knew it. That's what I thought when I was 12 or 13 years old. Now, it might have been just being a delusional 12 or 13-year-old, but it actually happened. We ended up becoming really good friends, and we fell in love. And I realized, oh, this is someone I want to spend the rest of my life with. Not just because I think she's super attractive. I absolutely love having a good time with her, but our vision and mission for life are so aligned. Our heart for people, our heart to kind of create a difference in this world, a heart to be great, just humans. It's so aligned. And so seeing her and seeing who I am when I'm with her made me think I really like this concept of us being together forever, of me committing my life to her. And because I like who I am and I like who she is when we're together. So let's just do this thing together. So we ended up getting married. We've been married for 9 years this year, and we dated for 4. I've known her since 13. So we've been, connected at least for over 20 years, and in a relationship for like 15.
Incredible. And so interesting that you recognized her value and her light and her direction when you were in such a dark space.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw how she treated me, but I also saw how she treated other people. She was the kind of teenager, because who would go to somebody who was sitting by themselves and like just connect with them, make them laugh. Yeah. Like she was the type of person who would be in a group of 3 or 4 people, see that person, say, hey, come with us. You're welcome in here. So I really liked seeing those characteristics reflected in just our everyday experience. Yeah.
Incredible. And it sounds like you've built something beautiful over 20 years. I mean, 9 officially on the books, right? And you've now welcomed a new daughter in here. And so what I see is you really have exhibited a pattern of intention in different stages of your life, and that you're also helping other entrepreneurs, whether it's AI or coaching or systems. It's like, let's be intentional. Let's not overthink, but let's be intentional about where we're going and what we're accomplishing. And let's move quickly through that process, which brings up the Star Wars Fitness channel.
Yeah.
Because this, to me, I'm like, what are you doing with this? I want to see the vision. Why did this get started? What's it looking like now? Like, was this intentional when you did this? Or was this like fly by the seat of your pants? What are you doing?
I love it. Okay. So I started a challenge called 75 Hard. Have you heard of 75 Hard?
Yeah.
Have you done 75 Hard?
No, I have heard on everyone else that's done it.
It is hard. I am, as of the time of recording, I'm on day 74 of 75. I'm so close to being done. Tomorrow's my last day.
Tomorrow. We should have.
It is amazing. I have lost 30 pounds. I've lost a lot of really kind of body mass, and I'm going to do it again, actually, in like 10 days. I'm going to actually do it 5 times. Why? Because I'm crazy. I don't know why. You know why? I really want abs. I've never had abs in my life. And I want to be able to go to the beach, take a picture with my abs, and it'll be amazing. At least one time in my life.
Okay, you've envisioned it. You're like, here's what I'm seeing. We're going to support you in it.
Exactly. So I started 75 Hard. For those of you who don't know what 75 Hard is, it's a 75-day workout challenge, fitness challenge, where you work out twice a day for 45 minutes. Each session, one is inside, one is outside. You drink a gallon of water. You read 10 pages of a nonfiction book. You stick to a diet of your choice. No alcohol during that time, and you take a progress pic every single day. And so I'm doing that. The worst part, honestly, is having to use the restroom every 10 minutes because of the gallon of water you're drinking. But I started it, and I decided, I'm going to go light on the workouts to start, because my typical MO is I'm going to go super extreme on day 1, and then I'm exhausted day 2, super sore. It just does. I knew I needed a little bit of endurance in this. So my 45-minute workouts were me walking on my walking pad inside, and then me taking an outside walk. It was just starting to walk.
That's how it started.
For the first week. Second and third week, I said, okay, I want this a little bit more intense. So I started doing some full body workouts that were like beginner level. It's like, okay, I want to do a little bit more intense after that. So then I started doing high intense impact workouts. And so it was like a really intense workouts. And I was like, okay, I want to go even further. So I started doing Pilates. Let me tell y'all, Pilates is hard. It is so difficult. It was first time doing Pilates, and it was crazy. And then I got into this routine, and it was starting to get a little boring. I was like, okay, I'm doing the same things, watching the same videos. I want to have a little bit more fun with this.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And so how do you make anything naturally more cool? You add a lightsaber to it.
Yes.
100%. If you've ever watched, go on YouTube, go to Game of Thrones with lightsabers. It's amazing. Go to Pirates of the Caribbean with lightsabers. It's just 10 times cooler. So I said, let me figure out how to incorporate my lightsaber with these workouts. And I realized a lot of the full body workouts I could do, I could be holding a lightsaber, swinging a lightsaber. So I said, you know what? I'm going to just pretend. I'm going to do these workouts pretending I'm holding a lightsaber, and it's really cool. Then I remembered, oh, I actually have a lightsaber. It's beautiful. It was like $800. My wife bought it for my birthday one year. It's a beautiful,
like a legit one.
It's a legit one. So I was like, okay, let me actually hold it. I did it. And then I was like, I think there might be people who would do this with me. Let me just record one. So I recorded one. It was like 8 minutes long. It's super cringy. I'm like trying to talk through my workout. It's just really bad. And then I was like, you know what? No, I used to have a studio. So I have all these lights. Let me put these lights up. Let me make it cool. And now I have workout videos. I have a YouTube channel. I have a TikTok, and I have like my YouTube shorts, as an example, get like 2,000 to 3,000 views, and I'm like just having fun. I'm not doing anything. Like I could be doing so much more with SEO and like using the organic, like doing organic strategies to get a lot of views. This is just like adding a lightsaber to fitness. And I can't tell you, I've gotten such cool comments from people and messages from people where it's like, hey, I think I'm going to start working out. I have a lightsaber and it's an excuse to use it. Or I had someone say, this is a great excuse to play with my lightsaber, when my wife's like, why are you playing with your lightsaber? And you can simply say now, I'm not playing with it. I'm working out. Mm-hmm. And it was like so cool to get like to kind of start building this community of lightsaber owners. I've since gotten 2 deals. One is with a local gym where they want me to do a monthly workout routine with lightsabers. It's a family-friendly event. And the other, in case you didn't know, Jediism is a real religion. They reached out to me and they said, hey, we'd love to have you out at our annual gathering next year to do a workout with all of these people. And I think I might be getting a free lightsaber from a brand to incorporate in my workout. So it's like catching on, and it's pretty exciting. So I have about 6 actual workout videos out. I release YouTube shorts and TikToks a lot. And I discovered again, okay, I need to be more consistent with this. So what I've done is I've started recording without publishing, because I want to have a queue of content lined up. What I was doing is recording, publishing, and that's just not sustainable. So I've recorded about 4. I want to get 10, and then I can like schedule them out every Sunday to kind of go out. And I'll be a little bit more strategic now. But it came out of a desire just to have more fun and not get bored with my workouts.
Well, and it's amazing because I want to dive back into what you said at the beginning, where you were like, I just need to have more fun, right? If I'm going to commit to this, I need to have more fun, right? And so you did this thing, and like cool things have come of it. Again, the overthinker would come in and be like, Shawn, this doesn't fit your brand. Shawn, this doesn't fit like your 5 core things you're supposed to be talking about on your platform. Like how do we get over that? The overthinking.
Yeah. Again, do it. Just take action.
Just
action moves the needle. There are, I think when you have what I call the subtle background hum of security, that's you have a loving relationship at home. You have money in the bank. You have food in your fridge. You have people you can rely on, right? Those things create a subtle background hum in your subconscious of security. Now, maybe you are listening to this and you may not have some of those things. Maybe you don't have, the relationship you want at home, or maybe you don't have, you're struggling to put food on the table. 100% you can still take action. We'll kind of come back to that audience. But for those of you who are listening, you have a successful business and you're kind of concerned about taking a risk that you want to take because it's fun, but it's going to kind of disrupt your existing brand or your existing stuff. People buy from people. I have gotten on sales calls recently where 45 minutes of the conversation, it's like this $50,000, proposal. 45 minutes of the conversation is all Star Wars. We're talking about Andor and Mandalorian and my Star Wars channel and their story with Star Wars. And then the last 10, 15 minutes is, okay, where do I sign? Like, people will begin to build relationship with you. How many times do we scroll through someone's profile and all they're talking about is their business? That's it. It's business, 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 business. And it's like, are you a real human? Are you a real, like, do you do anything outside? Do you have fun anywhere? And anytime I introduce things that I call my Fab 5 that just are everything else outside of my business, I can't tell you how many times I've seen my business grow. I learned this from a coach, Molly Mahoney, who says, the more fun you have, the more money you make. And I really lean into that. So where is the fun? Where's the joy? Let me lean into that. I used to swim 2 miles a day with my daughter. I haven't been able to get to the pool, but I used to swim 2 miles a day, and I would post a lot about that. I was part of a mile club. And if you get like 100 miles in a certain amount of time, you get like your name on there. And there was a time where I finally got my name on it. I can't tell you how many times through that journey I landed clients where all we talked about was their swimming experience, where they are learning how to swim, right?
Wow.
People like to talk about things outside of business. That builds rapport. It's easy conversation starters. And the ability to sell is like, it just becomes natural because people want to buy from people they like.
Right. Well, and go figure, like there's a million people they could hire for AI. But if they can hire an AI guy that also swims or also loves Grogu, like, who are they going to pick, right? Who are they going to pick? So where have we gone wrong on this in the industry? Why are we so off track in this? Here is the brand and here's what it has to give a perception of. Like, where did we go wrong?
Well, I think there's 2 things to consider. You have your personal brand and then you have a business brand. Your business brand is your business brand. You have very clear guidelines and, brand values and style guides and brand personality, brand voice. When it comes to a business brand, I highly recommend you stick within the confines of that brand because, a lot of people don't recognize that a personal brand is very difficult to exit because it's your personal brand. Right. I build businesses to exit. I don't want to be a part of this business for the next, maybe for the next 18 months, but if I'm a part of a business for the next 2, 5, 7, 10 years, something's gone wrong. I want to build to exit. I want to build the business and allow it to either let me exit the day-to-day operation. So I own businesses that I have 0 active role in. I just get an ownership distribution. I'm a part of board meetings and that's it. I have businesses where I have a minor active role in it, where it's just a consulting, advising, kind of executive coaching kind of role. And then I have businesses where I do have an active role. So the businesses should be, the business brand and the business entity should be not founder dependent, but founder independent. My personal brand, that's where I get to allow everything else to shine. So that's where I talk Star Wars. That's where I talk swim. That's where I talk marriage. That's where I talk parenting. That's where I talk about reading and the books that I absolutely love. The things that make me outside of all the business stuff. I'll still talk business when I need to generate leads on social organically because it's through my profile. I'll talk about how, hey, here's a case study. Here's how we help somebody scale from $50,000 launches to having a $500,000 launch. I'll talk about here's how we integrated AI and saved this person thousands of dollars a month because they were able to get rid of softwares, because they were able to integrate AI. So they're making more money. They were able to hire better people, whatever the case is. This is how I'm able to coach this person. This person was struggling internally with their identity or their behaviors, and we were able to shift things for them. So if I need to generate leads organically, I do that. I'm a fan, though, of creating a system that generates leads, converts leads, and delivers services that don't require me. I don't want my face attached to any business. I want the business to be able to be independent on its own. So if you have brand guides, stick within that. But with your personal brand, go have a lot of fun. Figure out what makes you you, what allows you to have a good question to ask yourself is, what kind of conversations do you want to have that have nothing to do with business? I want to talk Star Wars all day long. If you've been watching Andor, let's talk Andor season 2, how it's the best peak Star Wars. It is the best Star Wars content out there. And we could talk about that forever. And I know eventually when you have a need that I can solve, you already like me, so you're going to buy from me. And when I have a need you can solve, I'm going to naturally buy from you. So let your personal brand shine outside of your business stuff, and then let your business shine on its own without the face requiring it.
It's so good. And it does bring to the table the idea of people that don't know the difference. Don't know the difference there, that actually they want to be the face of their business. They look at Apple and they're like, I have to be the Steve Jobs, right? Or they look at the concept of the attractive character, right? Which Russell has brought to the forefront, and they don't see how it can exist any other way. Like, how do I build a business without a face, right? Yeah. So how would you consult someone on that?
So Apple has its own brand on its own. Apple was not dependent on Steve Jobs, because here's just update, Steve Jobs isn't the CEO anymore. Tim Cook is. So it was able to survive without Steve Jobs as the face of the company because he set up that succession plan. So anytime I start a business, I want to know before I even start that business, how am I exiting and what's the exit plan? Some of the business I own, the equity is going to pass to my daughter and any future kids we have. So I'm not just passing wealth in a bank account to her, I'm passing businesses and cash flow to her. So some of them I want to exit. I want to sell to a private equity firm or a corporation, a private financing company. Others, I want them to be my own cash flow businesses. So they're purely built to make me money, pay my bills, and let me live the life I want. So when you start a business, every business, unless you're building a personal brand on its own, I just think that's going to be very limiting for you. So if all you have is a personal brand, right? So my very first $1 million business was first name, last name coaching. Shawn Quintero Coaching.
Yeah.
I realized Shawn Quintero Coaching can't be passed down to Nyla, my daughter, right? Because it's Shawn Quintero Coaching. It's me. So I made the very intentional decision to separate Shawn Quintero Coaching. Now I have a company called Abundance Worldwide that has coaches that deliver services, that has a sales system that converts leads into coaching clients, that has a marketing system that generates leads and allows us to find people to work with.
Yeah.
That doesn't rely on me posting on Facebook on my personal profile 10 million times a month just to generate leads. You can do that. That's great, but you're going to be stuck to it. And I learned this the very difficult way. I built $1 million business, went to a conference where they were doing free business valuations to see if you could sell your company. And they were saying, here's what your company's actually worth. You're making this much, but what is it actually worth? Went to them, showed them my business, making lots of money. They said it's worth nothing. Nobody will buy. They might buy the data in your CRM. They might buy some processes you've set up, but they won't buy your company. And it was hard. What? I make $1 million. This is zero. You're telling me this is worth very little? And they said, yeah, because it's all dependent on you. How many of your clients, ask yourself this, how many of your clients would leave because you left? How many of your leads would stop
Most.
coming in because you left? How many sales would stop because you stopped being on the discovery calls, sales calls? So I said, crap, all of them, 90% of them.
Right.
So I had to make the decision and it was a process. We help our clients go through this process of kind of brand differentiation of, okay, how do I differentiate my business brand to my personal brand?
Yes.
And now I don't have to post on so sometimes I do. I'll post on social to support the brand. Like my personal brand supports my businesses, but my personal brand, my businesses aren't dependent on my personal brand. So if you have first name, last name coaching, first things first is create a separate entity that doesn't have your name in it, that's not reliant on your face, that's a business brand. Have a business name for your business brand, and then start to build out that business brand. What will oftentimes happen is your name will still be associated with it. So your name will still start speaking to it. You'll still start generating leads, but then you want to start building systems to kind of slowly remove yourself from it.
Holy smokes. Holy smokes. I mean, that is something I didn't even think we'd get to dive into as far as the value that you can bring. And what do you say when so much of the industry is centered around go get on the stage, go be I'm struggling to understand this because I mean, I've obviously built personal brand, but struggling to understand how you bring life to a company without a face.
Yeah. So do you go to T-Mobile because you know the CEO's name of T-Mobile?
Don't ask me that.
I have no idea who the CEO of T-Mobile is. But millions of people use T-Mobile as a service. Apple's pretty famous, but Google, do you use Google without knowing the name of the CEO, right? Or it's ABC Company now, or whatever it's called. Most of the time, they're businesses, you buy from businesses all the time where you have no idea who the main character, the hero, you just buy because their product or their service is really good. Most of the time, though, that model doesn't translate to coaches or service providers because we come into the business being the deliverer of the service. We are the web developer, we're the social media manager, we're the coach. And we start from there, I think, for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we just don't understand, for me at least, it was, I need to pay my bills, so I need to go make money. And I thought I was starting a business, but really I had a contract. I was a contractor. I was being contracted out and I was getting people to pay me to do things for them.
Right.
And that's not a real business. I couldn't take 3 months off and come back to a thriving business. All business would stop because I stopped. Right. So one of the first things we do is, okay, let's figure out how to take your brilliance as a coach, as a service provider, and create framework around it. Yeah, how do we document it? I learned this from another incredible person. His name's Atiba D'Souza, who said your brilliance is simply micro decisions that are happening, oftentimes at a subconscious level. You don't even know you're doing this or this is the pattern, but you do it. So how do we take that and document it so someone else can come in and bring their own flavor to it, but do your process too? That way another coach can come in. So I actually very, very, very rarely coach my clients. I have other success coaches coach my clients. They're not hiring because of me. The way we've set it up is they're hiring for the methodology we've set up. You move from being the founder face to being the architect of the method that people purchase from. So that's the first thing is let's take your brilliance and document it as much as possible, create the framework, create the strategies, the tactics, etc. The second thing after that is then to design the system. So there's 3 systems that are required for scaling a service-based or coaching-based business. We've talked a little bit about it. You have to be able to generate leads without you. You have to be able to convert those leads without you. You have to deliver services. Now, we already talked about delivering services through other coaches, but marketing. So when it comes to marketing, we are a really big fan of paid ads. I can pay $100 to get in front of people right now. I could pay $1,000. I could pay $5
while we're talking.
Get in front of people.
You and I are here. Yep.
Exactly.
Right.
It becomes scientific now at that approach because we can now look at the data and we can say, okay, how do I get more leads from this $5 or this $10 or this $100 or this $1,000 or this $1,000,000, whatever. You become more scientific with that rather than relying on an algorithm that's going to determine your organic reach. and trying to hack that algorithm. So typically we go through paid ads, and then we also recommend strategic partnerships. So there are companies out there that already sell to your clients that don't do what you do. Great example. I have a client that's a social media agency. They don't build websites. So the first thing we had them do to kind of start generating more leads without the founder being involved was we built these strategic relationships where web developers would sell their services as part of their packages. And then we sold web development services as part of our pack of that client's package.
Yeah.
On top of that, we included a free consultation for every single person who bought from the web developer. And then he included a free consultation to everybody who bought from us. So now we're exchanging clients and it's built in. He landed maybe 20 clients a month. This company landed 15 clients a month. So there's a natural flow of clientele moving forward.
Incredible.
We did this for the social media management agency. We told them, go get 10 of those. Find 10 strategic partners. And now you have this lead flow coming in. So paid advertising, strategic partnerships are kind of the magic formula for us. And then on top of that, you need a way to convert those sales. So typically we have, we do some of the traditional marketing, like have a webinar that sells your service already, have a sales team or a salesperson that sells your services that removes you from the process. So, build that sales system, build the sales team and allow yourself to remove from there. So get the leads, convert the leads, deliver the services without you.
Oh, and I would dare say, those of you who are listening where you're like, oh, I'm not doing that or that or that or that, just do it real messy.
Yeah.
Just let that partnership be a little bit messy. Go with someone that in your gut, you guys are both aiming for the same thing. Like just be messy about it. Shawn, you've clearly locked it in. And you guys have got systems and processes and documentation and all those things. But I'm like, oh man, if you haven't frameworked your stuff, Catherine Jones and I always joke, extracting instinct is what we call it.
That's great.
It's the most painful part of entrepreneurship, I think, is extracting instinct. It's like, get out there, teach it, implement it, write it, like do that really, really messy stuff in order to get your impact out there. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And when it comes to extracting instinct, I would recommend having someone else do it. So have somebody else like watch you as you're doing things and then stop you. Why did you do it that way? Why did you ask that? Why did you write it this way? And then you kind of have to, let me take what's unconsciously happening or subconsciously happening and make it conscious, give it a reason. It'll be really easy for you.
We just have been so richly fed. I know that we're a little bit close to the time, but I have to ask you something that I really would value your perspective on. So if you're okay with me going over a little bit, I think everything you've taught us just makes sense, right? And it feels good and it's value driven. The world is also kind of a hot mess in a lot of ways. Internationally, right? There's a lot of heat politically. There are a lot of things happening externally that, as much as you want to put blinders on, are impacting businesses and are impacting lives and families and all those things. How do you stay in a space of fun, intentionality, value, and businesses that are making money and making impact when so much of the political climate and economic climate is fighting against it?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things to kind of consider, or that I consider. Is my number one thing is always having a historical perspective. If we take a look at the world today versus say 500 years ago, we are living in an incredibly abundant world. Just a couple of statistics. Just 500 years ago, the majority of the world, 95% of the population lived in extensive poverty and severe malnutrition, didn't have food that they could eat. Today, it's 5%. The number is literally flipped. People have access to more calories to eat on a daily basis. People have access to more variety. I could literally go down the street and eat Mexican food or Thai food or Chinese food or Italian food. 500 years ago, you had what you could farm. So that's all you had access to. We have access to so many ingredients. So now it's not just raw food or like just kind of boring food, but we have access to create amazing food. You can tell it's getting close to lunch because I'm using food examples. Let's talk about like I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. The ability to have dental hygiene compared to 500 years ago. The ability to give birth today compared to 500 years ago. Our access to medical knowledge, to germ theory, to understanding what actually makes you sick today versus 500 years ago. Understanding access to education, women's education and children's education have risen dramatically today versus 500 years ago. Access to indoor piping, to be able to use the restroom without having to go outside. One of the common deaths that occurred 500 years ago was tripping and falling outside at night. We now have streetlights that light up the darkness. We have, by the flick of a light, the ability to light our whole home. So when you take a historic perspective, you oftentimes see this. We've worked really hard as a species to get here. We could talk a little bit about why that is, but we see this incline. Now, of course, it's not a straight line. There are ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. So today, we might be on a little bit of a dip, but compared to 500 years ago, we're doing pretty phenomenal as a species. So I want to live in a world where abundance becomes my default. By our nature, we look at the world through survival. Our brain is literally evolved and wired to look at the world and look for danger every 5 seconds. It looks for, do I belong? Am I part of the tribe? It looks for safety. And you literally have anatomical changes and shifts to your body when you see a spider on the wall, right? Before you're even conscious that there's a spider on the wall, your body has processed that you're in danger. So you are by default living in a body and in an experience that looks at survival as its primary focus, not flourishing. So we have to train our bodies to look through the lens of abundance. And having that historical perspective allows us to say, okay, let me look through this lens. What do we have access to today that they didn't have 500 years ago? And let me use that. My ancestors would be begging for the tools, technology, resources that I have today. Let me honor all of the people that have survived to make me alive today by doing and using and leveraging everything I have available to me today.
Wow. I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. And just think of how differently we would treat each other and treat ourselves if that was the lens every day, right? That top-notch quality. I am so grateful for. We have talked about a lot today, and we've covered a lot of incredible topics, and we have been so richly fed. And so thank you. Just thank you for showing up in the way that you did.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Oh, well, in typical Unreasonable Autonomy fashion, I'm going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions just to wrap it up and give some little nuggets to our listeners who have learned so much from you. So are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
Brilliant. Okay. What is one book that every entrepreneur should read?
I can't give you one book. I'm going to give you like 10 books. But my favorite book that really changed my life, I'm looking at for those of you who can't see this, you're maybe listening to it, I'm looking at my bookcase. There's a book called Scaling Up that became my Bible, like my business Bible for a long time. It's a great book. It's very practical. There are 0 stories in it. I think there's like maybe case studies, but it's not fluff. It's literally do this. Now do this. Now do this. So it's like really good. Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. We have then taken that and made our own kind of operating system out of it. But that was a great foundational book for me.
Incredible.
Yeah, I'll end there. But there's just follow me, ask me what are the other 9 books that you were going to mention, and I'll tell you.
And yes, you do need to go find Shawn online. Just look in the show notes and you'll see how to connect with him. Okay, second question is what is something on your bucket list that you have not done yet?
I have not gone in a hot air balloon yet. I really want to go in a hot air balloon one day. It's good. It'll happen.
It will happen.
Yeah. I'm my brain does not like heights. So I don't know how that works. And I'm a massive Wicked fan. So like part of me is like, I kind of want to go in it so I can go to the Wizard of Oz, I can go to Oz, but yeah. I have some competing beliefs there.
I knew there was a reason we were friends. We're both Wicked fans. This is so good.
The new trailer actually just came out. I haven't watched it yet, but it came out last night for Wicked for Good. And I'm so excited to watch it.
I haven't seen the trailer yet, so that'll be my next my next step, but it's going to be great. Okay, my very last question. It may be a little bit more on the heartstrings, but I think for you specifically with what you are trying to build within your home, this feels very appropriate. When you imagine yourself at the end of your life, what do you hope your daughter says about you? And what do you hope your wife says about you?
I think this comes back to my philosophy around love, and that presence is love. So I hope that they say he was very present in my life. He showed up. He listened more than he spoke. He empathized. He was curious. He empowered me. He gave me a platform to thrive, gave me an environment of fulfillment and love and peace, a safe place that I could always land when the world became just too much. I have in my, by the end of my life, I want my life to be marked by love. And I have a quote that I carry around in my wallet that I wrote when I was like 15 years old, and I still carry it. And it says, "There's no one on this planet that you couldn't learn to love once you've heard their story." And so I want to hear from them. He was such a big part of our story in such a positive way, that it was a positive experience for them. Yeah.
Wow. And I would just dare say that just from the past 90 minutes that I've spent with you, everything is built around that end goal of what you're doing.
I'm trying. Listen, parenting a 2.5-year-old, especially when they're saying no for the 50th time to brushing their teeth, I can tell you, it can get tough.
Maybe she needs a lightsaber toothbrush. That's what she needs.
Honestly, probably not a bad idea.
Let's add some fun into it. Well, the amazing Shawn Quintero, thank you so much for who you are, what you're building, the huge amount of value that you shared, and also just for the hope that get in there each day and just do it and have some fun in the process. It just has been so refreshing. So thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.